Good evening and welcome to the monthly meeting of the Arlington County Board of Zoning Appeals, which is also known as the BZA. I'm Terry Russell, I'm chairman of the board. The board is made up of 5 citizens appointed by the Circuit Court. In addition to myself, we have Enta Malice to my far right, Charles Smith, Paul Melnick to my left, and Vice Chairman Judy Freshman to my far left. Also present is the professional staff, including Deputy Zoning Administrator Andrew Noxon, who serves as Secretary to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Arlo Vavam, who is our Acting Zoning Administrator, Clifton Hogan, Assistant to the Zoning Administrator, and Cheryl Williams, Zoning Technician. We thank you all for being here and extend a warm welcome. To avoid disruptions, we ask that you please turn your cell phones off or put them in a silent mode. On the front table, you will find copies of the staff report for each case before us this evening. I recommend that if you have not seen that report for your case, that you get a copy and review it before your case is called. The board's powers are prescribed in the Code of Virginia and are set out in further detail in the county zoning ordinance adopted by the county board. The Board of Zoning Appeals does not have the power to rezone property or to amend the regulations set forth in the ordinance. That authority rests with the county board. The BZA does have the authority to do 3 things. We can approve use permits that allow modifications of placement requirements for structures on 1 or 2 family lots where there is no option in the zoning ordinance to allow such modifications. We can grant variances from the specific requirements of the zoning ordinance, and we can decide appeals of decisions of the zoning administrator. This evening, cases will be called and a brief staff report and recommendation will be given. Following that, board members will ask any questions of the staff they may have. Next, applicants or their representatives will be given an opportunity to make comments in support of the application or appeal. If they choose to make a comment, they must come forward to the podium so their comments can be recorded for the record. Next, all speakers for the item will be called. We accept no speaker slips after testimony has begun. Speakers must fill out speaker slips which are available on the table in the front of the room. After we hear from speakers for and against the proposal, the board may permit the applicant a brief opportunity to clarify any points. The board may ask questions of any speakers, but does not permit and will not condone any cross-examination or direct questioning by others. After the board has gathered all the information they need and discussed the case, it will decide the matter by voting on a motion made and seconded. A majority is needed to approve any motion. Any appeal from the decision of the board must be made to the circuit court in accordance with state law. After your case of interest is heard, you're welcome to stay for the balance of the session or leave at your convenience. Again, thank you for being here this evening. Please call the first case.
Thank you very much and good evening. Our first case tonight is V-10823-13-UP-2. This is a use permit amendment request by Matthew Spalding to permit a setback of 0.8 feet to the eave and 1.8 feet to the wall. A 2-story addition from the right side property line instead of 8 feet is required. It's for the construction of a new 2-story rear addition that was approved by a previous use permit. It's in the R5 zoning district on a premises known as 922 20th Street South.
Do you have any questions of staff? If not, can we hear from the applicant, please? Please state your name.
No, you guys.
If you could each state your name.
Sorry. Good evening. I'm Matthew Spalding, a homeowner in 922 South 20th Street. My wife and I came here about a year ago to ask for a use permit to construct an addition to our home so we can stay in the neighborhood and raise our children. The home is an older home built in the 1920s, very close, within 2 feet of the west property line. An extension approved almost 30 years ago continued that same line, and we propose to continue the house down the line again. At the time, we addressed to your satisfaction all the questions concerning design, surrounding homes, trees in the property, not altering or restricting adjacent neighbors' current or future use of the property, and how the proposed addition did not affect health, safety, welfare of persons residing in the neighborhood. Our neighbors supported this addition, as did the immediate neighbor to the west. And you granted that use permit. None of this is in question this evening. Here's the issue. We extend the house along that line, but the distance from the property line on both the eave and the house, which was scaled off an existing plat, ended up, we learned later, being a few inches closer than was estimated based on an ever so slight angle of a wall of some 20 feet. This was complicated by an additional requirement, which we readily complied with, to construct a 1-hour firewall on the west side of the addition, which padded the addition another inch or so. We conducted and turned in our wall check in April of last year, April of this year, and we're not informed of any problem. No wall check information was on the website, and there was no wall check review comments available. Our project continued, and we scheduled to conduct numerous inspections, plumbing, electrical, framing, installation, passing each and every one of those inspections. No mention of a problem by any inspector. The project is now finished. It looks great. We're enjoying living in our new home. It has significantly improved our family living space and contributed to the good of the neighborhood. And our neighbors have seen the addition and very much support it. We have comments to that effect, including the same neighbor immediately to the west, who has written a letter saying that he has absolutely no objection. It does not in any way restrict his future use. I can give you those at this time. At no time was there any intent to circumvent the permit process on our part. We complied at every step along the way. All that remains is the final inspection, and so we have come to you to submit our request for an as-built use permit. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, thank you. These two sets. Oh, okay. Okay. They're not different. They are different. Okay.
My name is Robert Douglas. I'm a homeowner in Arlington for the last 20 years. I'm also Matt's builder. I would call your attention to the plat, both previous, the one that was approved by the board here, and the as-built plat. If you overlay one over the other, you will notice that they are virtually identical. It's the trajectory of the house as it was positioned on the lot. I was under the impression we were granted right to extend it straight back, which is what the language says. When my assistant came to the zoning office and scaled this drawing, they obviously got it just ever so slightly off. We're talking about a fraction of a foot. So as you project it out, you get to the finished point, and as Matt said, we were somewhat complicated by the need to, after the house was framed, to erect a firewall, which required us to put cement board and some other things on the outside in order to meet the requirement, because we were within 5 feet of the property line. So that's our little explanation of how we got ever so slightly off. We're asking for your permission to keep the house as built.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions of these speakers? I don't have any other speakers. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Malice.
How much width did the firewall contribute?
About an inch.
1 inch.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the alternative resolution granting approval of the requested use permit with the conditions that are described in the staff report.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Melnick to approve the alternative resolution, which approves the request as advertised. Comments?
I have a question, I guess, of staff.
Questions about that, right? Can you explain to us the alternative resolution?
It's
If you would.
approving what you need.
Okay, great. All right, great.
Don't panic.
There was something in there about, it was a little unclear. All right. Thank you.
when these situations happen and we grant relief, and now it's on the record that this is the approval, these things are precedent setting. In other words, the next time we have something in this neighborhood, you will create a table that says, these are the things that we approved.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to distinguish, when these kinds of hardships, or is this simply now part of the mix?
I would say, it's just part of the mix at this point. Because how would you prove there was a hardship? You're making more setbacks, less conforming, I suppose, in the entire neighborhood.
I guess the hardship being that, it's a small, it's an incremental. I think we're tending to approve it because it's built, and it's a small, it's a small deviation. It's, but these small deviations sort of gets, kind of you start to go to infinity at some point. And I just wonder how you take that into account.
May I?
Sure.
First of all, I asked staff, without me having to look back in the staff report, exactly how much are we approving? An inch, 2 inches?
Let me see real quick. We had,
Mr. Smith thinks it's 3 inches.
do some math here real quick.
Where there's accidents, as this is, and how can we be so,
About 3
we
inches.
don't build here with cushions. We say it's 6 inches or 12 inches, and that's where it's got to be. And then can you imagine even doing any work in your own yard, laying out your garden or whatever it is, and getting it exactly that right? So I asked myself, would we have approved it this way if that had been the original request? And this is the adjustment to, would those 3 inches have made that much of a difference to us? I don't see approving it because, well, now it's built. I don't look at it that way. I look at it as I think that these are the kinds of adjustments the zoning administrator ought to have the power to approve. Now, I don't blame the zoning administrator for not wanting the power to do that without it being clear in the law that they're not going to get beat up when they do it. Right. But these exact things, and in Arlington, it's a big problem because our lots are small, and Ms. Freshman.
Well, we had reference to the plat that was used, and I don't know how, I couldn't tell exactly how old it was, but we've had situations more than once where we've had people relying on a plat that in these days of digital whatevers proves to be wrong. So that, and we also had a situation where there were inspections where it wasn't caught. So I think that unfortunately, even though as a matter of principle, I would like to say too bad, so sad, I can certainly appreciate in this particular case.
May I make a few comments? And just as a builder and how you make a very good point, because on the plat that we scaled off of, they were measuring off of the foundation. And when we applied for the variance, there was no differentiation between is it the foundation or is it the house? And when the language said it's the house, but that plat that we relied on to scale it was an inch or an inch and a half. The house was hanging that far over the foundation. So when I extended the property line straight back, that's part of how this incremental error happened. The second thing is, from a policy standpoint, to prevent a builder and a homeowner from having to come before you, when we submitted this wall check back in April or March, my understanding of the policy is that all further inspections should stop if you've failed your wall check, because what you're trying to prevent is somebody from building this house to the end, and then when that builder calls for his final inspection saying, oh, you failed the wall check. And at no point were we notified that we failed a wall check. It's not available on the website, or at least it wasn't then. Nobody called us. Nobody sent us a letter. None of these inspectors that came to view all of the stuff that I did ever said, hey, you have a problem. So I think there's some policy changes that can happen on the part of the county to help us.
Thank you very much, and that is not this board.
Okay.
That is the staff and the county manager, but I'll add this.
Yes, sir.
You submitted a final wall check before the place was finished? Isn't there a final wall check when it's all done that's required?
Sir, there's both, and we failed the one back in March.
You failed the first one and the second one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think just,
I see an issue there, but it is not an issue to take up with the management side of the county.
Okay, I'll do,
We don't,
yeah,
you're not going
I
to listen to me.
understand. I just thought I'd get it on the record, because I was shocked when we learned that we had failed this wall check.
Freshman.
I think there's a lot of blame to go around. But just to finish my point, I think that we've had discussions in the past about either cover memos or modifications to the application, especially with regard to neighborhood outreach. And I think this may be another flag that we could consider at some point, that people who want to come in for changes and have old plats, that to be defined, might be forewarned that it's in their best interest ultimately in terms of time and money to start out with a new plat.
That's a good point.
Well, there's some protections that can be taken, such as actually having a surveyor stake out the property before you start construction, too. So there are some things that can be done as well. And also, now I'm not saying that this is done all the time, but we also have builders who will frame up the entire house and then call for the wall check. And then it's already built once they fail it. And the whole thing's up and roofed and everything framed out. So.
And this is inches. I mean, what we want to guard against, and in terms of setting precedents and stuff, is building something that wasn't approved to be built. And it's, 3 feet, it's a whole room, it's that kind of thing. This is, the building code will put things on you after you've gone through our first part, because you got to go through us first to, if you want variances, to get it, and then, the building code might change in the meantime. Anyway, why don't we have call the question, get this over with. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, the next case tonight is V-10959-14-UP-2. This is also a use permit amendment request by Helena and Paul Peck to permit a setback of 12.8 feet and 14.4 feet to the two planter boxes, 14.7 feet to the right side stoop, 15.9 feet to the window wells, 16 feet to the eave, and 17.7 feet to the wall of the new home, the front porch, and the rear screen porch, all from the 14th Street North right-of-way, instead of 25 feet is required. And 4.8 feet to the stormwater planter box from the left side property line instead of 5 feet is required, and 9.8 feet to the eave of the detached shed from the rear property line instead of 10 feet is required. This is all for the construction of a new 2-story single-family home with a front porch, a rear screen porch, a right side stoop, 2 right side egress window wells, 1 left side stormwater planter box, 2 right side stormwater planter boxes, and an eave overhang for a new detached storage shed, which were all approved by a previous use permit. So the R6 zoning district, premises known as 1318 North Abingdon Street.
Do you have any questions of the staff? Not, could we hear from the applicant, please?
Hi, good evening. My name is Paul Peck. I'm here with my wife, Helena, our builder, Dave Springberg, and our architect, Thomas French. We're 21-year Arlington residents, including 17-year homeowners at 1318 North Abingdon Street. This is actually a return visit for us to the Board of Zoning Appeals. In November 2014, the board reviewed and approved our use permit application to construct a new home on our existing lot. We live on a corner lot. Our original use permit application met front, left, and rear setback requirements, but it requested a side street variance from the 25-foot side street setback requirement. During our initial hearing, we presented a number of clarifying points, primarily revolving around our efforts to design a home compatible with our neighborhood. Points included hiring a well-respected architect to design a Cape Cod-style home prevalent to our neighborhood, working for months on side and front elevations, including designing a gradual slope roof to be less imposing from front and side views, designing a home with a significantly smaller second floor than the first floor to better blend into the neighborhood, and designing a home with a height of 26 feet versus the permissible 35. In addition, our proposed new home narrowed the width from our existing property by almost 7 feet, including moving the wall of our home 4+ feet farther from our neighbor's house and 2+ feet farther from our property line on the street side. During the initial hearing, the board gave thoughtful consideration to our request and approved our use case permit after concluding that our by right option would actually be less compatible to our neighborhood and would have forced us to create a taller, more box-like home. My wife and I were very appreciative of the board's approval, and over the past year watched our builder build the home of our dreams. The house is beautiful, and since its completion, we've literally received dozens of compliments on its attractiveness of the house, in addition to how well the home fits into the look and feel of the neighborhood. Given the technical nature of our revised use permit request, I'm going to turn it quickly over to our builder, Dave Springberg. But as I turn it over, I would like to thank county staff for all their help working through the issue, as well as our appreciation of the work done by the board. We know it's a very tough job, and we appreciate your consideration of our revised use permit request. Thank you.
Good evening and happy holidays. My name is Dave Springberg. I am the builder. Tom is the architect, and this is our combined effort over the last year. We were here a year ago. We've been involved since the inception of the design of this house with the PECs and the execution of the plans, the original use permit, and then the construction. At the onset, I don't remember if you remember the original use permit, but basically it's a 62-foot wide lot. There's a 9-foot setback on the left side, a 35-foot wide house, and the board granted an 18-foot setback to 14th Street, which is the side that you see in your photograph right there. The house that was approved by the use permit is the house that was submitted for building permits, that was reviewed again by zoning for consistency and compliance, and it was the house that we built. Where I think the issue is, where I know the issue is what is 35 feet? And 35 feet is the foundation dimension, is the exterior sheathing dimension, it's the dimension that we follow when we build the house. But when you put the siding and the cladding and the corner boards on the house is no longer 35 feet, it grows something larger than that. I just want to go through the process because I think it's important because it kind of speaks to what happened in the previous case. When we build a house, we clear the property. We then have the engineer comes out and gives us 10-foot offset stakes to where so that the excavators can dig the hole. And those 10-foot offset stakes are big enough or close enough for us to put footings for the new foundation. Once the footing is in place, we bring the engineer back. And it's the best $750 you can spend to have the engineer set brick points. The engineer comes and nails the corners of the foundation of the house. And that guarantees to me that A, the house is in the right spot, B, it's square, and C, if it's wrong, I got somebody to blame. It's either the engineer or the concrete contractor. In this case, it was neither. There was a wall check completed and a wall check that was approved by the county, which matches the use permit and matches the approved set of plans. It wasn't until we finished the house and submitted the final survey that zoning came back to us and said, well, what about the corner boards? You're not 18 feet from the property line, you're 17.8 or something close to that. And I said, well, those are not dimensions that are on my plan or any plan that was ever submitted, because the architectural plans only measure to what I call the naked house, the exterior sheathing, which is flush with the foundation wall. On the other three sides, ironically, where we are not close to encroachment, they said you would have been allowed to encroach 2 to 3 inches for siding and corner boards and veneer stone and such. But on this side, the side that you were granted your use permit, because the Board of Zoning Appeals granted you 18 feet, zoning can't allow anything less than what was approved by the use permit. So I said, well, what do we do? I said, well, go back to the Board of Zoning Appeals, which is why we're here.
Let me ask you a question while we're here. I don't know if anybody else has got it in the back there. What happens in Falls Church, Fairfax County, Alexandria? Don't you run into the same problems in other places where you're building straight to the setback?
I'm Thomas French.
Thank you.
I've got 30 years of experience building single-family houses in Northern Virginia, and we work in all the major jurisdictions nearby. The convention in residential architecture is always to measure to the foundation plan. It's not to say that one couldn't include details that would essentially dimension that, but the point is we want the trades to place, we want the concrete contractor to place those foundations correctly, and that's the critical element of the plan. So particularly in regard to the foundation plan, adding extra dimensions to that plan to meet, let's just say, a zoning requirement could potentially cause confusion in the field and potentially mistakes. So in my 30 years of experience, I can assure you we've never issued a foundation plan that included the finishes, which, bear in mind, are not there at the time you place the concrete. So if we're talking about Fairfax County or the city of Alexandria or Falls Church City, in my experience, this particular discrepancy has never been an issue. I've probably been granted 6 or 8 special permits in Arlington County for similar requests, probably at least that many in the other jurisdictions, probably less in Falls Church City. So we've been through this process before, and the thickness of the finish has never become an issue before, again, in over 30 years of practice.
Well, I have to say that this has been something that we've seen in Arlington County for some years, where the thickness of the finish causes the variance to be off, or the use permit, what's been granted by the BZA, to be off, and required owners to come back afterwards.
Well, I guess my answer to that is, in all honesty, from our point of view, professionally, what we then would have done would have been to ask for an inch or 2 more at the outset. Maybe that's not what you want to hear, but,
no, I think that,
but it would have clearly, because what I think all of us are going to back is asking for the alternative resolution to clean up this situation.
Sure.
Our point is we had no intention of violating the special permit, and in fact,
I was more. I'm sure you didn't, and I was more curious about. Well, other jurisdictions just let it go. I mean, the BZA grants a variance for an exact number of feet plus inches, or an exact distance, and then the staff allows, or whoever, the zoning administrator in the end allows, I would say without authority, to have a lesser, what would it be, a greater variance than what had been approved by the board.
Right.
It's been the understanding here in the interpretation, legal interpretation, by the advice that's given to us and so forth here, that 18 feet is 18 feet. It's not 17.9 inches. So that, to me, that's something that the professions need to be, to understand and go, we gotta, put in something here to make sure that we're right, because they don't have a choice. The zoning administrator doesn't have a choice.
Mr. Chairman?
well, perhaps some clarification in the zoning ordinance is in order.
And that's something that the community or you or anybody else can take up with the county board.
We understand that that's
I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm trying to explain where this staff is and where we are. And I was mostly curious about how the other jurisdictions handle it. Apparently, they feel that they can give the additional, that either their ordinance is clear or that to the foundation, like most people would like to do it, is it. And the siding or whatever is fine to be to extend into what has been approved.
Well, that's our experience on the other sides of the building, where there is a normal setback. So I guess our misunderstanding, and we apologize for that, is that apparently a special use permit establishes a new threshold.
Guys, we're having a nice discussion, I hope, about what happens in other jurisdictions, how it happens here, the trouble we run into, because, the interpretation is that it's got to be, this way. And I'm very sympathetic, don't get me wrong. As I said in the last case, I think the zoning administrator ought to be able to make a determination that, well, this is just, an inch. Why does it, have to go to the board? But it's not. May I take Ms. Malice's question? She has a.
Yeah, actually, now I have a question for both you and staff. Did you mean to say that the measurement is taken on in a different way on the side that had the use permit than the other side where there was no use permit, when they were measuring to the setback?
No, ma'am, I'm just saying the convention is to measure to the face of concrete, and that establishes the shape and dimension of the house, and that the finishes are going to grow by an inch or two on every side.
I understand that, but did you mean to say there was a difference in how they measured one side of the house versus the other?
It's identical.
They-
I think you're allowed the extra couple inches if you're not granted a variance on that side.
Right.
So you're allowed the extra inches on the other. So it really is a question for staff in terms of how things are measured. When we approve something, are we approving it to the face of the concrete or to the face of the siding or whatever exterior?
And that's the reasoning behind how we advertise. We say to the eave, to the wall, to this, to that, the other. We expect it's going to be to the furthest point, the closest point of the house, which means it may be siding, brick, or cladding, or the eave, or trim, or whatever it may be. The case they're talking about is when you have a by right house, you're meeting 25, 25, 8, 10, whatever the setbacks may be. Zoning administrators in the past, over the years I've been here, which has been over 6 years now, they have allowed up to 3 to 5 inches for brick, stone, siding, and that's if you're by right. You're meeting all the setbacks, and that's not written anywhere. It's not in the zoning ordinance. It's not even in a determination, but it was kind of an office practice that had been done over the years. But that's the issue that we hit when we're doing a use permit. We have a setback where you're already more than that 3 inches, more than the 5 feet that other things can encroach into, or 4 feet that other things can encroach in the setback. So we have to hold it at that point.
It seems like until there's a policy remedy in terms of how this is measured, that there ought to be a disclaimer very clearly stated somewhere that you either set your foundation back 2 inches, equal to your siding, or you're going to come back here.
Since this case has come up, I have been working with applicants to make sure they understand it. And also we have a kind of a BZA how-to guide on the website now that shows that you should show it to the outer edge. So we're trying to remedy that situation now.
Because I agree with the chairman that, it is a kind of a needless burden to ask applicants to come back and for this kind of a misunderstanding is what I think it is.
Yeah, it's to finished wall, I guess, and that maybe,
So, but in the meantime, it just ought to be clear to applicants so that they can set their foundations accordingly and shave that inch or so
Well,
off.
or ask for the additional, that,
Yeah, exactly.
a couple inch, like in the last case, would there have been a difference?
I always say aim high, build small.
Thank you very much.
Motion?
I don't have any speaker slips. Ms. Freshman, please.
In the case of use permit V-10959-14-UP2, I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the alternative resolution, approval as requested, with conditions.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Ms. Malice to approve the alternative resolution, which is the request of the applicant. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carried 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next case tonight is V-10977-15-VA-2. This is a variance amendment request by the County Board of Arlington to permit a fence with pilasters and a wall above the maximum permitted height of 7 feet, and to permit a fence with pilasters and wall exceeding 4 feet in height within the setbacks from the Jefferson Davis Highway and South Eade Street rights-of-way. It's in the M1 zoning district, premises known as 3175 and 3201 South Eade Street.
Are there any questions of the staff? Could we hear from the applicant, please?
Hello. Hi. My name is Rami Natour. I'm from Arlington Conti DS, Facility Design and Construction. Basically, we came last year, same reason, we're coming today. We started the construction on the north and the south lot, which is two properties the Conti owns, and we're going to be building for a facility for the transit, public transportation. Sometime last year, we were able to purchase the 32nd Street, which is between the two properties, and the county vacated that property and now owns it from VDOT. And we came to the decision by joining the north lot and the south lot together, will give the county more spaces to park buses and a better flow for the buses to go in and out the facility. So basically what we're asking is if we can just keep the approved setbacks that were approved last year on the two existing lots to match this new land.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions of the applicant's representative? Hearing none. Mr. Melnick?
Yeah. If I can make a motion, please.
Please.
Okay, so in case V1097715 VA2, I move that the Arlington Board of Zoning Appeals pass the alternative resolution, which is granting the request of the applicant.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to grant the request as advertised. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Okay, the next case is V-10987-15-UP-2. This is a use permit request by Guggen Data to permit a setback of 7.2 feet to the home from the right side property line instead of 8 feet as required, 13.9 feet to the porch eave, 14.9 feet to the porch base, 13.4 feet to the eave of the home, 14.4 feet to the wall of the home, and 19.9 feet to the areaway from the South Fern Street right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. It's for the construction of a new 2.5-story home with a front porch and a left side areaway. This is in the R5 zoning district, premises known as 602 20th Street South.
Are there any questions of the staff? If not, could we hear from the applicant, please?
Hi, my name is Guggen Data. My wife and I purchased this home at 602 20th in July. It was a partially demolished structure which had approved permit plans and had gone in front of the BZA to allow building of a non-conforming structure, building on top of a non-conforming structure with a conforming rear addition. We purchased the home and with the full intent of building as was permitted by the documents, by the permitted documents that were approved by the previous owner. As we began to inspect the existing structure that was partially demolished, it was deemed that the walls would not support an extra 1.5-story structure above what was there. So we are back in front of the BZA to hopefully gain approval to take down the first floor walls and build the building with no other changes to the previous BZA application.
Any questions of the applicant? Ms. Malice?
Are the walls down now, or?
The walls are down now, yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Smith?
Kind of a follow-up to that. Would it have been possible to leave the walls in place and then have come to the BZA?
So this has been a sort of a work in progress. When we purchased the house with the approvals from the previous owner, the permits that we received that were applied for had full approvals to take down the existing first floor walls. So basically there was a misunderstanding as to what was approved by the Arlington County and what the BZA had said was okay. So from my perspective, me and my wife purchased this home to build exactly what was on the permits, the permitted plans, and that's what we were building. And when it came time to do our wall check, or I think maybe a wall check, I'm not sure, I'm not a contractor, I'm not in construction, so there was some part that we were, that where it came up that, hey, there might be some miscommunication with what was approved at BZA. At that point, we had to go back to the BZA documents, review them, and we had a meeting with Drew and Norma and some other folks at the Arlington County office, and it was suggested that we, instead of working off of what was permitted and approved, let's just go back in front of the BZA and see if we can, have this heard and then move forward accordingly.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Ms. Malice?
Question of staff.
Certainly.
So the permits gave the impression that it was all right to take the walls down?
What was shown to the BZA originally was a sheet that showed first floor walls to remain, and there was a little portion on the back that was going to be demoed to put the by right addition onto it. When the building permit came in, that same plan was brought in with dotted lines just where the new addition was going to be added, except there was a little note somewhere that said demolish all walls, or all first floor walls, and I think the plan reviewer didn't see that portion and just went off the plans that matched exactly what the BZA saw, and I don't think that note was noticed at that point, and there had been multiple revisions that came in. So it was partly a mistake on the whoever was drawing the plans and partially a mistake on whoever was reviewing the plans. So that's what kind of brought this issue up.
I'm not quite following. There was a note on the plans that all the walls could come down?
Yes.
Who put that note there?
I believe the architect did.
Doesn't sound like a staff
Well,
oversight.
the staff didn't. If staff would have said, "Hey, that note doesn't match the fact that there are no dotted lines around the entire perimeter of the foundation, showing that all the walls are going to be taken down." That's not how an architect or engineer would typically show walls coming down. They would show all dotted lines all the way around, and I think that was missed by the reviewer.
Ms. Freshman?
I guess for Drew, the report says that there are 3 active zoning enforcement and code enforcement cases.
Correct.
Is that just related to what we're talking about, or are there other issues? Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
No more questions?
Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Smith?
I move that we adopt the attached resolution granting use permit V-10987-15-UP2, subject to the conditions which are listed in the staff report.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Smith and seconded by Ms. Freshman to approve the request. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Here, this is case number V-11070-15-UP-1. This is a carryover and revised use permit request by Ahmed Fahim to permit a setback of 15 feet to the home and porch from the South Lowell Street right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. Also 15 feet to the home, the areaway and the deck from the rear property line instead of 25 feet as required. It's for a new 2-story semi-detached dwelling with a left side porch, a rear deck, and a rear areaway. It's in the R27 zoning district, premises known as 2121 South Lowell Street.
Are there any questions of the staff? Okay, can we hear from the applicant, please?
Good evening. As you may recall, there was a discussion when we were here on October 14 to adopt essentially the staff's recommendation of a smaller setback in the rear yard and reduce from 3 stories to 2 stories. And you may also recall there were a number of folks in the neighborhood that appeared and voiced some concern, particularly along the back. There's a 3-story townhouse back there. And there was a perceived that is perhaps intrusiveness in being able from that 3rd story to look into the backyard. I have now with me, if I may approach.
Please.
Approvals from the neighbors. particular, I'd like to draw your attention to the first page, Kyle Leeson and his wife. That was one of the principal folks behind in the three-story house. They now have approved, as has Atul Bhagat, another one of the rear yard neighbors. And you'll also see the last page in that packet is Matthew Rice, the third townhouse homeowner in the back. They've all approved, as well as neighbors across South Lowell Street, Michael Collier and Ryan Blasset. And I have spoken to both of the immediate adjacent neighbors, and they have voiced their approval so long as we adopt in our plans what the staff has recommended. And indeed, that's what we have done, and that's where we are today. The adjacent homeowners is Shirley Anderson. Spoke to her again today. She's not able to come or provide the requested approval. She said she would, but she wasn't. Her husband's had to go to the hospital unexpectedly. And curiously, Gail Hunter's father also had to go to the hospital as well. Spoke to her again today. She said she would try to email me her approval, but she just wasn't able to do it. So we have the neighborhood all on the same page, agreeing to the staff's recommendation. Mr. Fahim has conceded to that smaller setback in the back, and he will build according to that recommendation.
All right, do members have questions of the applicant?
Comment?
Ms. Mount.
I'm glad to see that you have consensus in the neighborhood. I think that that is good for everybody concerned.
Quite right.
Motion?
It can be done.
You have questions?
Ms. Freshman?
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution approving use permit V-11070-15-UP1 with conditions.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Mr. Melman to approve the request as recommended by the staff. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next case, this is also another carryover or partial carryover. This is V-11078-15-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Alex and Roberta Maselli to permit a setback of 18.8 feet to the eave and 20.3 feet to the wall from the North Upton Street right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. It's for the construction of a new one-story right-side addition. It's in the R8 zoning district, premises known as 2271 North Upton Street.
Good evening, Roberta Maselli. I'm here with my builder, Gil Amaro, and we are here to ask for a use permit to enclose the screened-in porch that was approved last month with windows.
We remember that case, I believe. Yes. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Maselli? Is there a motion?
I'll make one.
Mr. Melnick?
Okay. In case V-11078-15-UP1, I move that the Arlington County Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution granting the subject use permit with conditions.
Is there a second?
Second?
It's been moved by Mr. Melnick, seconded by Ms. Malice to approve the resolution as requested. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
I'm going to recuse myself from that vote because I wasn't here last month to vote on the first part of it.
Mr. Smith recuses himself.
I didn't.
Thank you.
Did I
You
have
don't have to? No.
vote on this
He didn't either, but he wants to.
Thank you very much.
I think that's fine. Thank you, ma'am.
Next case is V-11087-15-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Mustafa Anis to permit a setback of 4 feet to the air conditioning units from the left side property lines to the 5 feet as required, 4 feet to the eave and 5.5 feet to the wall of the home from the left side property line instead of 8 feet as required, 4.5 feet to the eave and 6.3 feet to the wall of the home from the right side property line instead of 10 feet as required, 24.6 feet to the wall of the home from the North Danville Street right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required, and finally 7.2 feet between the home and the existing detached garage instead of 8 feet as required, and an aggregate side yard of 8.5 feet instead of 18 feet as required. It's all for construction of a new 2.5-story home with 2 left-side air conditioning units. It's in the R6 zoning district, premises known as 1814 North Danville Street.
Do I have a motion? This is a recommendation to defer.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Malice?
I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals defer the use permit V11087-15-UP-1 to the February 6, 2016 BZA hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Malice, seconded by Mr. Smith to defer this case to February 6, 2016. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, this is case number V-11089-15-UP-1. This is also a use permit request, and it's by Michael Kunkler and Suzanne Sullivan to permit a setback of 9.5 feet from the right side property line instead of 10 feet as required. Also, an aggregate side yard of 14.3 feet instead of 18 feet is required. It's for the construction of a new 2-story right side addition. It's in the R6 zoning district on the premises known as 3111 4th Street North. And the motion is to defer this. I'm sorry.
Motion?
Yes.
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals defer the use permit V-11089-15-UP1 to the February 2016 BZA hearing.
It's been moved by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Mr. Smith to defer this case to February 2016. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next case is V-11090-15-VA-3. This is a variance request by John Agropoulos to permit a main building footprint coverage of 28.3% instead of 25% as permitted, and a total lot coverage of 51.5% instead of 32% as permitted. It's for a new 2-story left side garage addition. This is in the R10 zoning district, premises known as 4741 Rock Spring Road.
Any questions of staff?
Has to be deferred.
Not, can we hear from the applicant, please?
Who wants to talk?
I submitted a request to defer this application and the next one to the February date. That went, I shot an email this afternoon, and that's at the request of the neighbors.
Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move the Board of Zoning Appeals defer variance V-11090-15-VA3 to the February 2016 BZA hearing.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to defer this case to the February 2016 BZA meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You want to read this one into the record? And we'll just go ahead with the motion.
The next case is the associated use permit to the previous variance. This is V-11090-15-UP-1. This is a use permit request by John Agropoulos to permit a setback of 4.5 feet to the eave and 5 feet to the wall from the left side property line instead of 12.2 feet is required, and an aggregate side yard of 16.3 feet instead of 24 feet is required. It's for the construction of a new 2-story left side garage addition. It's also in the R10 zoning district on the premises known as 4741 Rock Spring Road.
Ms. Freshman?
In the case of V-11090-15-UP1, I move deferral to February 2016 BZA hearing.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Mr. Melnick to defer this case to February 2016. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Lawson.
Our next case is V-11091-15-UP-1, and this is a use permit request by Joseph and Mary Beth Schreiner to permit a setback of 14.5 feet to the eave and 15 feet to the first floor bay, and 17.9 feet to the eave and 18 feet to the wall of the new 1- and 2-story additions from the rear property line instead of 25 feet as required. For the construction of a new 1-story addition, a new 2-story rear addition, and a first floor rear bay. It's in the R6 zoning district, premises known as 1112 North Powhatan Street.
Are there any questions of staff? If not, hear from the applicant, please.
Good evening. We purchased our house in 2012 and are looking to add an addition to just be able to stay in our neighborhood for a long time. And we wanted to preserve the front of the house as much as possible, so we're doing a rear addition. But the rear setback, we would like to go beyond the rear setback. We have spoken with neighbors in the 8 surrounding houses, and all of them had no objection to this, and we believe it conforms with the similar additions in our neighborhood.
And there are letters of support in the package that were submitted to the staff. Yes. Any questions of the applicant?
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution approving use permit V-11091-15-UP1, subject to the conditions listed in the resolution.
Second?
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Mr. Melnick to approve the request as advertised. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Okay, this is case number V-11092-15-VA-1. This is a variance request by Charles and Karen Miller to permit a total lot coverage of 53% instead of 40% as permitted. It's for the construction of a new one-story rear addition and a rear porch. It's in the R10 zoning district, premises known as 3106 North Rochester Street.
Any questions of staff? Not, we hear for the applicant, please.
I'm new to this, so I prepared some pictures I think you'll find, so I can describe a little bit of what we want to do here.
Thank you.
So hard to describe what we're doing from those numbers on those papers.
Thank you.
I am the co-owner of the house with my husband. He could not be here tonight. He is away on business, so I'm representing both of us. We are the homeowners at 3106 North Rochester Street. We've been there since 1975, and as our family has grown and changed, we've made changes through the years. This was supposed to be our last change to add this rear addition of a larger dining room, kitchen area, and family room that would be in place of the deck that you see on the back side of the house. On the first few pages, you just see how, especially on the first page, you can see that all of the houses on our street that are in that location have very long driveways that came with our houses from the get-go, so that in 1975, we already had a long driveway. But in 1999, when we added on the garage to the back part of our house, we had to put it in the rear section of our property because it was too close to the property line to do it beside the house. So that extended our driveway just a little bit longer. That's significant when we start talking about the coverage that we have. However, what we're trying to do is deal with putting more space by this addition, but taking care of a drainage problem that we've had underneath the deck for a very long period of time. Since we've been there for the 40 years, there has always been a problem with the air vent. On page 5, you can see that the drainage that's in the stairwell below the deck that is part of the whole concrete area that was there since 1975 allows a lot of dirt and something that comes through, and I've had many, many plumbers come and try to resolve the problem for us, but no one can explain it, what's underground there. So when we were approaching the idea of doing the addition, the last part, we thought this would be great to dig this up and figure this all out. And when I went to see all of my neighbors about whether they had any objections to us doing this addition, they were very curious to find out that if we get a solution to this problem, they would like to know what needs to be done because they have the same issue in their Rambler-style homes as well. On page 6, I just had a picture of that was old from way back in 1983 that shows how long our driveway was and how much concrete we had.
and that the extension that we did to go to the garage in 1999 is also on that page, just to indicate that the driveway footage is being part of that 53% that was such a problem because we are supposed to have 40% where we are located. At this point in time, we have gone back through all the plans and looked at things along the side of our house that are on concrete, like an old side. On page 8, we've indicated we could remove those items because that was counted in the footage of our home. We could remove the area where the garbage is. And on that same page, you can see where our deck itself extends beyond because that was located on top of that original footprint concrete pad of our patio. The actual wall of the addition is going to be further in. It's going to be a smaller footprint than what we have. And around that footprint, you could see probably on page 10 is maybe 10, yes. Actually 11 probably shows you the easiest on the new plat that we had done to show everything that is there, that we've indicated that this is just a small corner addition there and the actual real work goes within the house itself to move walls and reconfigure some items there. But on the outside, we would be having more planting beds in that whole area where we would remove more concrete. So instead of that 53% that we kept hearing about, we could reduce it down to 50.5%. So we're still over the 40%, but we're dealing with something that a lot of these things that were already there from the origin of the house when we bought it in 1975, and we're just trying to remedy situations in that back corner that our family is grown, and it's very difficult to have family dinners in a very small area that we're living with right there. They're both living in Arlington, married, and I now have grandchildren, so we are, all of us, homes in Arlington, so it's a very important part of the house on being on the first level. So this was to solve a lot of problems. We used to always go downstairs to the recreation room to do all of our entertaining. This way we can do it right here, and I can do a lot more with the grandchild. On the backside, we currently have 4 doors. That would go down to 1 door as an exit, which would be a lot more if we were able to do this addition. So the variance that we're asking for is because of the fact that we exceeded that 40% that is for our particular R10 zoning with the back garage and having the front porch. Do you have any questions? Anything else you want to add? I'm sorry, this is the architect, so if you had any questions about numbers or things like that, he was here to help on that.
I would like to point out a few.
Yes.
Could you state your name for the record, please?
I'm Tom O'Neill. I'm the architect.
Thank you, Tom.
For the project. While working with Mr. Noxon with the application, it was posted at 53% coverage, but at the request from Mr. Noxon, we did go back to the surveyor that we used to do a new plat of the property, and the actual existing coverage is 51.8%, and we are making our best effort to reduce that coverage and down to 50.5%. And I will point out that the house exceeded the coverage at the time that this ordinance came into effect. So we're trying to work with it, but with the understanding that we exceeded it before, from the get-go, basically.
Do you know what that number was? What percent coverage?
I don't understand your
You said
question.
it exceeded 40%. What, before you added the...
51.8 is what it is, right?
Really, it's going from 51.8 to...
50.5%.
Well, it's being reduced from what it was. I'm sorry.
It takes the house part.
Yeah, and the issue driving it is the concrete driveway more than anything.
Yeah. So. That was a question I noted on my report when I was looking at it. What is the existing coverage? So what are we going from to? And it's about the difference between the 40%, which is what the ordinance says today, and the 50% you're now requesting is about 100 square feet, 10 by 10. I mean, I try to understand that. So actually, there's a reduction from what's existing.
Mr. Chairman, do we know, does anybody know what the coverage was in 1975? I don't,
You mean what was permitted?
yeah.
It was 56% up until 2005.
Legal back then.
This is a result of the coverage rewrite of the board.
Well, I was just sort of trying to make that point.
There were also some changes made in the 2000s. One after the adoption of the coverage ordinance that was made. That's where I speak about the plat that's attached on the back, where it wasn't showing a driveway.
Right.
Had the driveway been on this plat showing us the exact condition, I think it would have been stopped at the front porch and wouldn't have gotten this far with them planning an addition and all that. Maybe they would have come for a variance back then and had it granted, but.
And when?
This was, I believe it was 2012. Let me check my.
I'm sorry, what was that for?
There was a front porch added to the house.
Okay.
When the house was already over coverage.
So it would have been flagged at that point.
So there's an entire driveway that wasn't shown on the plat, so.
Another
those were
plat issue.
factored into
I
it.
rest my case.
Mr. Melnick has a question.
Yeah, I have a question of staff, if I could. In 2012, I noticed, in just about every one of these questions, it talks about, the driveway not being shown, but just so I can understand, isn't there site visits though, or is it strictly done off a plat, the approval of plans?
When they're building permits done, really the site visits are conducted by inspectors who do building code inspections or other sorts of inspections. Typically for something like a front porch, it's usually those smaller projects where zoning doesn't go out. There may be a wall check or something like that, but they're not going to go out there and factor in coverage and all that. Now, if this was a new house, a brand new structure being built on the lot, they certainly would. We have a final plat that's inspected and taken out to the field and looked at there to make sure everything's on the plat that's supposed to be on the plat.
I'd like to ask a question of staff, too. Are there permitted materials that, for example, for the walkway from the street to the house, that would not be counted in coverage?
Well, walkways don't count anyway, so we don't have that issue. But that brings up a good point. For things like pervious pavers on driveways, unfortunately, we don't have anything in the ordinance at this point for that. I know there was some talk about it years ago, especially with commercial properties, and I think they had issues with fire trucks driving on them and things like that, so it just never went anywhere.
Well, that's commercial. That's right. It wouldn't matter in private.
Yeah, I think that was the same reason they didn't explore it for residential properties as well.
Ms. Malice?
Yeah, just to follow up, was there a notion being discussed, or is it part of the art right now, that if, rather than a driveway, if you have 2 strips of concrete, the measurement is different?
There was, and that recently changed. We used to allow you to do 2 strips, 2 runners, and we would only count what's in the concrete portion. But now the ordinance actually specifically says between the strips counts now too.
That's a new change.
Well, what we were seeing is people were just going in and paving it back over later. So,
I see.
or putting pavers between them, something like that. So,
Mr. Melnick?
I have a question of the applicant. Just in light of, the coverage, that's being mentioned here, at 40%, are there any other things that you all could give on? I know you are going to take the shed out if it's not already out, but are there any other ways that you could give just to bring it down? Anything like that? Anything?
Some of the things that were just mentioned were things that we asked the staff are permeable pavers, and it is right in there that we can't do it. I mean, it even says now that grass areas that you park on are considered part of coverage, so it's not a lot of wiggle room without taking down structure or leaving, well, we can't even leave a gap in the paving because that would be considered parking area. So we tried to do what we could and still allow car access to the garage in the rear corner And the garage was put in the rear corner because there would have been a variance required to put it up next to the house. So there, the whole chain of events. That I haven't.
I can't imagine a neighborhood looking like that now in Cincinnati.
Can I ask a follow-up, please?
Mr. Miller?
Was there any consideration of going vertical any more than you are? Because the staff mentions going vertical. But
You know, that was mentioned to me in an email, and since we've lived there for 40 years, we have done so much work on the interior of the home that the idea of taking that all away seemed not feasible to us at our age. If we had been thinking 30 years ago about going up might have been a good idea, but all I want is a first level area extended out. We don't need all of that excess to go upward, and it's pretty hard to do at our ages.
She won't point it out, but she has arthritis. One-story living is definitely what.
Yeah, I'm trying to limit how much I have to use the steps that are already currently in the home. And when we were going to do the addition, we were taking out some steps on that one wall that's next to the master bedroom area, and I would only have the other steps. It was just to try to change. Our lifestyle has changed with our ages, and the fact that I could do so much with my family right on that one level would have been great. So that, and then the best part of all was to solve that ugly problem that's existed since we moved into the house below all of that. That concrete that's there was always there underneath it. We would be able to get it all out and find out what's going on down in that well of the stairwell that all of our Rambler homes have. So it's like we would finally finish all the things. We love the home. We love everything we've done to it. We just wanted to finish out this part for family and for what final issues we had with the house. So going up was like voluminous. I mean, right next door I have something completely going up, and it's like, wow, it's great to see all the problems get solved, bingo, right away with one brand new big house, but kind of too old to do that after all the things that we've done in that house. And one of the first things we wanted to do was to have a master bedroom, because the bedrooms were always so tiny in the house. It was just the box Rambler style that you start out with. And it always had small kitchen, small dining room. And when you start out and you don't have children, you think you've got a massive home. But then as time goes on and you have children, and then now we have spouses and grandchildren, and now we're really, we need that last little corner just finished off the proper way for us to enjoy our house for many years to come.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Malice?
The applicant noted that there were other homes going up in the neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
And I wondered, have there been any coverage issues?
No, there wouldn't be. There's a new house next door. That's a complete tear down, or did they add?
Brand new.
A little tear down, the neighbor that we'd had for 40 years passed away, and that was a complete tear down, and now there is a beautiful home being put there. It's lovely, and I'm sure that all of this basement stuff that I was referring to, they will not have that issue because they've got all kinds of new solutions that come with the brand new homes.
It's the next door house.
But
That's
on
brand
the
new.
end, the people that signed off on us going ahead with this project, thinking it was a great idea for our home, the mixture of neighbors comes from some of the brand new housing and the people right around us.
I'll also point out that the new houses are all designed to meet the requirements because they are new, and the driveways are always short right up to the front. They're laid out in a way that maximizes the footprint of the building. We did not have that opportunity because it was a pre-existing condition before the ordinance was put in effect.
Do we have copies of your neighbors?
It's the last two pages. I'm sorry, I put it at the last two pages. The letter that I wrote for them that they signed off on.
I would note too that they're not requesting any relief from any setbacks or side yards or any use permit for those purposes. It's just to deal with this coverage issue. And the garage was constructed. Seems like to me coverage was done so long ago, but you mentioned it was 2005, which I guess as long ago as 10 years. But so like their garage, for example, was built when you could do 56%. The front porch was, well, you said that was later, but, and may have been missed.
And they couldn't even build that garage today because the footprint cap on garages.
Right.
Right, that was, the garage was 1999, and our master bedroom side was 2000. The deck itself was permitted way back when, 1994. And our porch was the last thing on the front, which was 2012, I believe. It was all fully permitted by Arlington, all of the sections.
Any more questions for anyone?
I just, since this is a variance, I'm trying to kind of frame what the hardship is here. What is it that is the obstacle? If somebody could help with that.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Smith.
I would describe the hardship as the law changing with respect to coverage, thus putting the homeowner in a position where anything they do, even reducing the size of their coverage, still puts them over. So the advent of a law that causes someone to be in conflict automatically by operation of law seems to me to be an unusual condition that justifies some relief from a strict application of the zoning ordinance.
Mr. Melnick.
Okay. Yeah, what I'm, dealing with too, just in light of that, is, the coverage, it was put into place for a reason. It's a standard, just for the nature of neighborhoods. So there's, not too much building, not too many things on the land. So it is a standard, and that was the policy set when the law passed. And so, I understand what you're saying about reducing it even, and so it seems almost perverse, reducing it and not being able to do that. But what I'm thinking about is just, the standard of coverage, and that was the policy, and so that's the way it's supposed to be. And I'm having a hard time with the hardship too, just is this, is the use being unreasonably restricted? So anyway, it's. Yeah, those are tough questions.
Could I respond to that? So I think the same thing, but I would compare it to a house that is 10 feet from a side property line when it should be 12 feet, and someone wants to add a second-story addition, just filling out the existing envelope. That's considered oftentimes a grandfathered condition that usually is readily approved. I've been through that before for variances. I see this as a very similar case where those houses were built before the zoning required a 12-foot setback. This house was built and these additions were added over the years before the new ordinance was adopted. I would look at it the same way, that the hardship is the fact that they had a pre-existing condition. Their hands are tied. They can't do anything to their house besides going up, which is impractical for them to do.
May I ask a question of the staff? We granted this variance. Is there any going up over this house that would be permitted without coming back to us because we've granted a variance?
You could restrict not building up over the addition that you're granting.
But not, you'd approve a building permit that went on the other end of the house and let.
We could potentially.
Second floor without. I mean, that's where I, have the issue. You can build as a matter of right a really large house, but coverage rules won't let you expand and keep a one-story house, which is, as I recall, when coverage was worked on, it was to relate to big houses in the neighborhood, big mansions. Well, McMansion can be built as a matter of right with 40% coverage. And right next door, there is one. It's lovely. I don't deny that, I might like to live in it myself. But in this instance, because of the coverage rules, a one-story house can't be, yeah. So, that's kind of, but I have trouble with the coverage rules anyway.
Point, if I could, think if we had to go up, we would still be here because the house is in violation of the ordinance. So we're, again, even going up, the house is at 51.8% total lot coverage.
You can still build up by right. Mhm.
That was kind of the point you were making before.
Even the fact that
You're over.
the house, the total lot coverage is in violation. Okay.
That was even related to the point you made before, that if you were already encroaching, you could go straight up, because the ordinance allows that. It's the ordinance. I mean, you know, it's illogical in the ordinance, I think.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Malice?
I still find ourselves discussing why the policy, or why the law, in this case the regulation, is incorrect, you know, or illogical, or unhelpful to certain goals. You know, the idea that, you know, you can go up, but you can't go out. You know, and we think, you know, the sentiment would be going out should be okay. I'm just wondering where the line is between, you know, just sort of rejecting the ordinance as opposed to really looking for, you know, in other words, was the hardship created by the ordinance, or is it the hardship, the application of the ordinance?
Well, in my opinion, it's always done on a case-by-case basis with the lot we've got, the language in the ordinance, the building, the request, in case of coverage, the outbuildings, the other things that are here. It is the driveway that eats up a lot of the coverage. And one of the things that was talked about when coverage was worked on was you know, driveways in the back. And I remember a lot of people talking about, well, what are we going to do if we have this driveway that eats up all this coverage? I think even then, that was when the strips were talked about and then turned around later and taken away. So for me, I think when it comes to a board like this, there is a certain amount of discretion we have to take it case by case and look at you know, what's really going on here. And I look at things like it's only 100 square feet. It's already at 51.8. It's being reduced. Yes, it's over 40, which is, you know, real nice to achieve if you're starting from scratch. And would this, not that these folks probably wouldn't do this, but would that lead to the property being torn down in order to get a more desirable house? I mean, you know, like it could be, say this was a new couple instead of a long-time couple who wants a one-story home, come in here, ask to make the addition, ask us about it, and we say, well, no, and then their by right alternative is to tear everything down on the lot and build a brand-new house. Do we want, you know, I think we can go either way. You can have an opinion on that either way.
Sure, and that's where I'm kind of struggling a little with, in terms of, you know, we're trying to put a value on different outcomes. You know, that, you know, tearing it down is worse than expanding it, which, you know, my tendency is want to have internal consistency in my thinking, so that, you know, as these come forward, I agree that looking at things case by case is, you know, you have to take the facts into consideration, but that there's some consistency in how we look at each case, at least as a starting point. And so the different values that we've discussed in terms of what might be better or worse, I'm not sure, you know, how to process those. Because if the standard that we're given is hardship, you know, that's a tougher standard.
If I could speak, yeah, that's the way I look at it. You know, the hardship, it says here, you know, it talks about unreasonably restricting the utilization of the property, a strict application of the ordinance. But then it says, would the granting of a variance alleviate a hardship due to a physical condition relating to the property or improvements thereof which existed upon the effective date of the zoning ordinance? So, we should definitely focus on the physical condition of the property. Is that the hardship? The physical nature. So, and what's creating the hardship? So, it's, from what I'm hearing, it'd be easy to, just, keep on going and just allow one-story buildings to just, expand, to keep the property there. So, I'm definitely tangling with the whole hardship and it being based on the physical condition of this property. So, that's all I have to say.
I mean, too, I suppose there's another design could be of an addition could be tried that was lesser, but to remove 100 square feet is 10 by 10 or what other combinations get you to 100 square feet. I don't know if I mean, I guess that would be, if we denied this, that's what they'd be left with, to try to look at a different design that they could get down to the 40% coverage.
It would actually be 1,000 square feet, not 100 square feet.
I'm sorry, my math is bad. Flunked that. Oh, that's right, it was the difference between.
I don't know if I have a chance to comment anymore about the
Sure.
physical condition of the property. Covered, there's a good chunk of concrete there, so that is again what I remove more of that than we'll be covering with the new addition.
Well, the board, it's with you all.
I can see everybody's point of view, but it's a general matter. When I looked at the site, I'd rather see their house than the one next to it. I think we're going in that direction, and even the folks on Abington decided to tear down their house, but what they put in its place was more appropriate for the neighborhood. I'd like to make a motion.
Ms. Freshman.
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals approve the alternative resolution on variance V-11092-15-VA1
Is there a second?
with conditions.
That's the alternative approving?
Yes.
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Mr. Smith. Are there any questions, discussion?
Well, I'll just say, by way of discussion, I think it is perverse to say that we can't allow an applicant to reduce the coverage to a number that's still above what the law allows, but less than what exists right now. It seems perverse to not allow that. You're minimizing you're going toward the accomplishment of the goal, which is to reduce lot coverage, not to 40%, but to a degree less than what exists now. So I just can't. It's inconsistent for me internally to not allow that, and that seems to be a hardship that is. And it travels with the land to the extent that, we're not talking about topography, but we're talking about the condition of the land. There's a lot of pavement. So that's why I support the motion and seconded it.
Ms. Mouse?
And I think I'm sympathetic with the various policy goals that we have, but I can't bring myself around to saying that reducing lot coverage, that the hardship is the fact that you can't go down. That's what we're saying, is that you can't go down. the hardship seems to be, the way the law is written, seems to be different. I don't like the position we're in, but I think that that's the position that the regulation puts us in.
Well, I think that the alternatives to try to do the addition they would like to have by removing other structures, removing driveways, changing the garage to some other use, and having a little stubby driveway up front to accommodate one car, which is what your requirement is, and so forth, is such, compels me to say that it's reasonable to approve the variance. You ready for the question?
Call the question.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Motion carries 3-2.
Thank you very much.
Sorry? Yes. Okay, our next case is V-11093-15-VA-1. This is a variance request by Carl Bernstein and Jeffrey Cuck to permit a main building footprint coverage of 29.4% instead of 28% as permitted, and a total lot coverage of 40.7% instead of 38% as permitted. It's for the construction of a new 2.5-story home. This is in the R8 zoning district on a premises located on the vacant property between 2256 and 2264 North Upton Street.
This one's going away.
Mr. Lawson?
Can I ask if anybody in the audience is here on this case and the next one?
Yes, right behind you.
You all are here on that. Okay. The variance we'd like to defer, and I'd like to go forward on the use permit.
Okay.
How's that work?
Is it your opinion that you could have the use permit approved without the variance approved?
Well, we're deferring the variance, and we're going to look at an alternate design. However, we would like to know what our footprint is, and so I'd like to proceed on the use permit and see if we can have that relief so that we know what the rules are as we look at a redesign of the house. And so I'd like to proceed on the use permit, and the variance will be deferred. I know you can't approve it without a plan, and so should you approve it, you'd say, okay, we approve this setback, but you got to come back with drawings, which we intend to do in February.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I don't know how we can approve a footprint without talking about coverage.
Right.
The footprint is already.
Well, the by right footprint is a long, narrow house, and what we're wondering is can we have a side yard where, as requested. That's what I'd like to accomplish tonight, and so I'd like to proceed on that part of it.
I'm hearing the board liking the idea of deferring both to February.
And discussing with you, yes.
At least two members have mentioned that.
Mr. Chairman, it just seems to me that you're putting the cart before the horse. And also, I understand that the buildable area is narrow, but knowing that, and with your vast experience in what you can persuade the board to do, I would think that you could come up with something that might be acceptable to the owners and is still saleable. But I don't think it's our job to do that, and I don't even know how we'd begin. We'd just say, well, you could have 5 more feet in every direction or something like that. It's just, I don't see that happening. But I think between now and February, you could come up with some variation on what's permitted that we could consider.
Okay. If you all should say grant the use permit, we would only have to reduce the building a small amount. But I want to come back with drawings in February because I don't think it's fair to the neighbors. But we could proceed and get the use permit and then just slightly reduce the plan that we have now.
But if we go through all of this and we still defer it to February because that's what we want to do, then we've wasted everybody's time, in my opinion. I also have 3 speakers that have signed up to speak against these.
Right.
Seems like there might be some opportunity between now and then to work with these folks to address what may be their concerns on your side.
Yeah, we had a meeting with the neighbors, and I got everybody's email. And I sent out an email this afternoon indicating what I intended to do tonight. And we are going to have another meeting after the holidays. I was just hoping that we could establish how far to the side we can go so that as we look at the design, see, our problem is we have a very steep backyard, and we really can't go further back. I mean, we could, in theory, meet our coverage and then have a long, narrow house, but we would prefer not to do that. And so I was hoping to at least get some guidance from you all. Yes, we think that the 5 feet on the one property line is okay. That's what I was hoping to get tonight. If you all don't feel comfortable doing that, then I would defer.
I have 3 speaker slips here, so it seems to me we've heard what you want to do on the variance. He'll have to call the use permit again before we can really finally deal with that. And let's hear from the speakers who've come out.
Okay.
Give them an opportunity to speak.
Are we going to defer the variance?
Are they speaking on the variance?
They're speaking on the variance.
Oh.
And then they're speaking on the use permit too if they want to. So,
Okay.
Greg Engelworth. Welcome.
Thank you. Excuse me. I'm here representing 12 neighbors in the community, 7 on Upton Street and 4 on Vermont Street, and 1 that's in the neighborhood that opposed this use permit and the variance also, so if we want to talk about that. For the development of the vacant lot, I had submitted the signatures for a petition for all of these, and it wasn't included in the package, so I was told to bring it tonight, if I may approach.
Just hand them to me and we'll pass them down. You go on back and speak so you're losing your time.
Our opposition centers on the very large size of the proposed house on a very small lot. On one of the sides, they are asking for only 5 feet to the property line versus a required 13 feet. This is significant. We feel that any new home that is built here should be within the R8 zoning limits. We feel the limits are there to prevent large houses being built on very small lots that would overcrowd the neighborhood and change the characteristics of it. We feel that this use permit is not compatible with the neighborhood because it is so large and would encroach on both neighbors, 5 feet on one side and 5 feet on the other, approximately. And we also don't want to set an unwanted precedent for future requests with regards to building on additional lots like this. We also feel that the denial of the request will not restrict the development of the property, as a suitably sized home could be built there and thus would not cause any hardship to the current owners or any potential new owners that we think are involved in this, as they are fully aware of the nuances and limitations of the property. Thank you. I can ask one more question.
Certainly.
Which is a curiosity, which is why this lot is deemed a buildable lot at 6,500 square feet, 6,500 and change.
Plenty big.
I presume that the administrators made a determination that it's a buildable lot, or we wouldn't be here.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct. We do have one on file.
Any questions or?
No, not right now. We'll see about whether you all want to speak again. David Early.
Good to see you. My name's David Early. I live at 2263 Upton Street. That's the house across the street from this property. I support the staff's recommendation to deny both requests. and believe the staff's report fairly identifies the issues with the owner's plan. At about 6,500 square feet, the small lot is well below the 8,000 square foot minimum for the zone. In my view, the proposed new structure's footprint is too large for the property and would result in development that is inconsistent with the character of the neighborhood. As the report indicated, granting the variance and use permit would amount to an unjustified special privilege for the owners. Strict application of the zoning ordinance would not unreasonably restrict the utilization of the lot. The lot can be developed with a large home by right. I look forward to seeing the owner's plan for a home that conforming to the permitted setbacks and lot coverage and consistent with the neighborhood's character. Thank you.
We didn't get to see the plans.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Stephanie Oz, please.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Ooze, and I'm here to represent my mother, Elizabeth Scholart, who lives next door to this lot. And her house was built in 1912 and is like 4.5 feet from the property line. So them building in excess of their allowed amount would be uncomfortably close to her house, and it would really encroach on her privacy. She and my late father wanted to buy part of that lot when these owners bought it, and they had not been willing to sell, yet now they want to sell to a builder who wants to make a profit, as much profit as possible. And my mother sent a letter too, which I think was not in your packet.
What is your scholar?
Do you have it for us?
I think that was the one you were handed before the hearing.
We have it.
Just hand them on.
It was at our desk. Elizabeth Scholart? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, yeah.
That's all.
Thank you very much. Those are the speakers on the variance. I guess I think it's fine to what Mr. Lawson requested, whether we would be inclined to do that or not. But it's kind of funny, it's almost like approve the variance and defer the use permit so that we can see what we get with, instead of the other way around.
Right.
That's just my way of thinking. Ms. Freshman?
Once again, I move the Board of Zoning Appeals and defer variance V-11093-15-VA1 to February 2016 BZA meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to defer this case to February 2016. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Read the use permit in the record.
Certainly. This is the associated use permit V-11093-15-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Carl Bernstein and Jeffrey Cook to permit a setback of 6.4 feet to the eave and 7.4 feet to the wall of the home, 6.9 feet to the porch eave and 7.4 feet to the porch base, 7.5 feet to the rear deck, and 5.1 feet to the chimney from the right side property line instead of 13 feet is required, and an aggregate side yard of 13.7 feet instead of 21 feet is required. So the construction of a new 2.5-story home with a front porch, right side chimney, and a rear deck. This is in the R8 zoning district on the premises located between 2256 and 2264 North Upton Street.
Any questions of staff? Mr. Lawson, do you want to talk about this before we do something with it?
No, again, we would request a deferral to the February hearing date. And if the speakers speak, I would like an opportunity for about 2 minutes to rebut.
Okay. Would you all like to speak again, the three speakers I called on the last item, or did you sort of say it all then? Any one of you, just raise your hand if you want to speak again. No? All right. Mr. Lawson, you have some more you want to say?
No, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Malice.
I guess it's a request for staff or whoever. Obviously, there is a determination that this is a buildable lot. When this comes back to us, could we have some guidance on what is allowable by right?
Certainly.
I think it's important that the community know that there is a by right option here.
For the coverage, I put some figures in the report saying the size of a footprint that could be built, and then you have your 8 and 13 side setbacks.
If you could sketch it out.
extra work, I was going to say, the plat, even just a drawing that's clear with that, but to scale
What's the
of the
maximum?
buildable area, and then maybe the buildable area, the coverage is somewhat less than that. In some cases it is, big lots it's
Yeah,
less,
yeah.
and in small lots, the coverage, anyway, you know what I'm saying.
I can certainly
so
do that.
we could see, you know, it's nice when we have those, you know, sometimes developers will present us with, here's where, you know, it's this little bit that's over the line.
Yeah, because I think it's important that community members also be able to evaluate whatever's brought forward for, you know, if this comes back to us in February, so they can evaluate what the proposal is compared to what the by right option would be. Because, in fact, sometimes the proposal can be better than the by right option. The by right option can end up being very forced because, you know, you're just trying to fit it into a site with all the variances. And while it may be smaller or more suitable, you know, smaller, it may, in fact, not be as desirable. So that's something that needs to be factored in. And I hope that, you know, I know that Mr. Lawson is well aware of how to figure out what by right options is, and that, you know, he can initiate that conversation.
Okay. We have Ms. Freshman.
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals defer use permit V-11093-15-UP1 to February 2016 BZA meeting.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Mr. Melnick. To refer this case to February 2016. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, the next case is V-11094-15-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Eva Flom to permit a setback of 15.3 feet to the eave and 16.1 feet to the porch base from the easement for public street purposes along North Sycamore Street instead of 25 feet as required. This is for the construction of a new front porch. It's in the R6 zoning district on the premises known as 1401 North Sycamore Street.
Any questions of staff? If not, can we hear from the applicant, please?
Good evening. My name is Eva Flom, and I'm the owner of the property, and this is my builder, Mr. Michael Wynn. I do have a couple letters from my neighbors. I did speak with all of them about my upcoming project. So I have 2 letters of support that we're able to present if you'd like.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I would point out that the main thing we're doing with the porch is leaving the size of the porch the same. However, the wrought iron supports that are there are quite dated, and the roof needs to be replaced and that sort of thing. So that's what we're basically doing in this part of the project.
No.
Yeah, they're coming.
Oh.
Sorry, we're passing your letter. Do members of the board have any questions of the applicant or builder regarding the proposal? It seems to be the addition of a second story and some additions out. Mr. Melnick.
So I'd like to move that in case V1109415UP1 that the Arlington County Board of Zoning Appeals adopt and approve the attached resolution granting the subject use permit with conditions.
It's been moved and seconded to grant the request as, grant the use permit as requested. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
The next case is V-11095-15-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Chris and Margaret Chase This is to permit a setback of 20.3 feet to the eave and 21.3 feet to the wall from the rear property line instead of 25 feet as required. It's for the construction of a new two-story left side addition. This is in the R8 zoning district on a premises known as 4005 24th Road North.
Any questions of the staff? Hear from the applicant.
Good evening. My name is Yuri Sagatov. I'm the designer. My clients have a couple of letters which I'd like to present to you.
This guy's, he's top shelf.
Okay.
This is simple. This is not one of his.
The letter that I just handed Mr. Russell is from the Woodmont Civic Association expressing positive feedback on the Chase's request. I'd like to add that the Chases have spent considerable time approaching the neighbors, discussing what they'd like to do. We're proposing a modest, roughly 4-foot encroachment into the rear setback that would align with the existing house. And the Chases have gotten letters from the neighbor next door and several others, including the Civic Association. I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have related to it, but we appreciate the staff's support of it. And at this point, I have nothing else to add unless you have other questions.
Do board members have questions of the applicant?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Smith.
I guess I would just say the applicant is going with one of Mr. Sagatov's more tamer designs. He's a phenomenal designer.
He offers a wide variety of.
Yeah.
Motion.
Ms. Freshman.
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution approving use permit V-11095-15-UP1 subject to the conditions listed in the resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Freshman and seconded by Mr. Smith to grant the use permit as requested. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, this is case number V-11096-15-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Carl and Kendra Hartman. This is to permit a setback of 4.5 feet to the eave and 5.7 feet to the wall from the right side property line instead of 10 feet is required. Also, an aggregate side yard of 12.9 feet instead of 18 feet is required. For the construction of a new one-story right side garage addition. It's in the R8 zoning district on a premises known as 5529 18th Street North.
Any questions for the staff? Hear from the applicant, please.
Hi, my name is Carl Hartman. I'm the homeowner and representing myself and my wife. I have no other comments, but I do have a petition from my neighbors to support the project.
That'd be great. See those. Thank you. Do we have any questions for Mr. Hartman?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Smith.
I'll just make the comment. I wish that the folk who left were still here because of this being a lot very similar that would with setbacks that are small, that they would have seen how it is practical to build something and to get setbacks that are small comparatively. But anyway, for ears that aren't here.
Questions, motion?
Chairman?
Ms. Malice.
I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution approving the use permit V11096-15-UPI-1, subject to the conditions listed in the resolution.
It's been moved by Ms. Malice, seconded by Ms. Freshman to approve the use permit as requested. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Oh, it's not doing it.
That brings us to our last case of the night. This is V-11097-15-UP-1, and this is a use permit request by James and Sarah Smithers. This is to permit a setback of 18.2 feet to the porch eave, 18.8 feet to the porch base, and 22.8 feet to the second-story addition from the easement for public street purposes along North Kenilworth Street. And this is instead of 25 feet as required. This is for the construction of a new front porch and a new second-story addition above the front porch. It's in the R6 zoning district on a premises known as 2517 North Kenilworth Street.
Questions for the staff? For the applicant, please.
Yes, hi. I'm James Smithers, here representing myself and my wife. We're the homeowners. Just got back from Saudi Arabia, serving at the embassy there, and we look forward to building a front porch where we can watch our son play with the neighbor's children in the cul-de-sac.
How long were you away?
2 years there at the embassy.
You owned the house before?
Yes, sir.
Oh, you did. Any questions of the applicant?
Mr. Chairman. I'm very fond of porches. Therefore, I'd move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution granting V-11097-15-UP1, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Smith, seconded by Ms. Malice to approve the use permit as requested. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Is that Ms. Freshman?
No, Ms. Malice.
I thought it was you.
Trying to jump in there, but
Go with Malice. Okay. I just heard Judy, that's all.
she was on the button out there.
Chairman's discretion, right?
Gotcha. Thank you.
I think actually my left ear is better, but Judy speaks softly, so.
Well, looks like we cleared the room.
Yeah, that's how we know we can go home.
In just over 2 hours.
Except, no, Barnes is still here, so.
Oh, is he? Oh, my God, he is.
That means February is going to be really long because we have all those deferrals, plus deferrals from last month too, so.
Mr. Melnick wants to move the minutes.
Great.
Okay, so I move that the minutes as given to us for the meeting November 18th, 2015 be approved.
Then moved by Mr. Melnick, seconded by Ms. Freshman to approve the minutes of November 18th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Abstain?
I would just point out that we deferred the minutes, the October minutes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Oh.
So, but we don't have them.
Forgot to put them in your packet. I apologize for that.
We just.
So we actually have all the members tonight.
Did we have to take an action to defer them again because we deferred them to?
I suppose we would.
Yeah, why don't we just do that?
I wasn't sure we were going to have all our members till today. That's part of the problem. We can defer them again. That's fine.
Do I have to amend my motion or make a different one?
No, just make it.
Okay, I move that we defer approval of the October 2015 minutes to February 2016 meeting.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Ms. Malice to defer the October minutes to February 2016. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We got that.
I wish you happy holidays and happy new year and move adjournment.
Second.
Same to all of you. Vote on that.
It's
Aye.
by acclamation.
Thank you for the cookies.
You're welcome.
Yes, let me question.
And everybody was really good. Nobody opened them and tried them. Oh, you did? You closed them back up.
You did that quickly, because I didn't even see that. Are there any nuts in here?
No, no
Okay, good.
nuts. It is chocolate. There is
Perfect.
sugar.
Okay, good.
So if anybody has,
Yes.
I told
just
Jim
can't eat-
before I left.
I
said,
can't
well, if
have
anybody has chocolate or
no
sugar,
nuts, no popcorn,
give them away.
no
Yeah.
seeds. I gotta stay away from all of
Yeah.
that.
No, I don't like nuts and chocolate chip cookies. I can
I
have
don't.
them, but I don't
I
like
don't like nuts in really anything now, but